All right. So good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? I'm getting nods on the people that are on video. Everybody's doing good. Today's Tuesday, April 25th, and I just want to welcome you to this online webinar. I've done this in person before. I've never done this specific class online, so I'm kind of excited to see how it is. But it's 5 simple steps to creating awesomeness, right? Because we all want life to be awesome, and we all want it to be just fun and enjoyable and all of those things, and let go of struggle and things like that in our life. So I put this course together, and for those of you that have kind of done some of the self-help stuff in the past, it may be a little bit backwards. So just bear with me. Did everybody get the PDF? Because we are going to need that later. So if you have that, great. If not, you can just take notes. But I did send a PDF out to everybody so that you could take notes as we go along. But first, I want to tell you guys a little bit about me. Those of you that have already seen me, you know that I had my own round of struggle with the negative self-talk, the self-doubt, the negative thinking, all of those kind of things. And I remember being at a place one time where I was kind of at my breaking point, and I was just in that space of, okay, something's got to give. Like, life should not be this hard, right? So I realized when I was going through this that I never put myself first. I was always the first to volunteer at PTA. I was always the first to volunteer in the classroom. I did pretty much everything for my kids. All of those things I was constantly doing, giving. Can anybody relate to that? Like, you're always doing something for somebody else and you're on the back burner. So I'm seeing some nods. For those of you guys that you can unmute yourself and join in the conversation, unless there's a lot of background noise. And then of course it's easier to have it on mute just so it's not distracting to everybody else. But that being said, I just was really struggling, and I don't remember, there wasn't like an exact point where I can say, okay, I remember that this happened and that was the point when everything changed. It wasn't really like that for me. I know a lot of people, a lot of the speakers and things are like, oh, this happened and it was, this was when everything changed. And for me, it's been more of a gradual change over the years. Just realizing and doing things a little bit different. And so for me, I had gone through this space where I'm like, things should not be this difficult. I want more grace and ease in my life. I want my life to be more fun. I felt like miserable. Like, I felt like I wasn't even enjoyable as a wife. Like, sometimes I felt sorry for my husband. I thought, why does he even want to be married to me? Because I'm miserable all the time. And that being said, I went on this self-discovery mission, I guess you can call it. And so that's what I want to help all the women that I meet do is really learn and discover who they are and what they're about and what they can offer, right? Because I think sometimes we lose ourselves in the day-to-day of what we should do and what we're supposed to be doing, and just working, or if you have a family, you kind of get lost in all of the day-to-day. Can everybody relate and agree with that? So I'm seeing some nods and some yeses. Again, everybody sounds like they're quiet. So I hope everybody's hearing me. I'm not used to not having interaction. So bear with me on this. Thank you for those of you that are on video and that are nodding so that I can see that you're actually hearing what I'm saying. So a lot of it for me, you guys know I am Christian and I'm also a psychic. So a lot of it for me was twofold. There was the part of me that didn't really want to acknowledge and realize and accept who I was and the gifts that I had, because at that point I still felt like they were a curse. The other part of me was the Proverbs 31 woman. And if you guys are not Christian, you probably have still heard the stories anyway about, she's like the superwoman of the Bible who, every woman that's Christian usually wants to be. But what they forget to tell us in that is that she had a lot of help. Back in that time, there were servants, people didn't live on their own and have to be superwoman on their own. She had somebody helping with laundry and with the kids and with the, all of those kind of things that a lot of times we don't have help with. So that for me was a huge eye opener. And I don't remember why or when I realized that, but I thought, wait a minute, I'm striving to be something all on my own with no help from anybody. And I'm striving on something that this person really wasn't. Because she had servants, she had helpers, she had, if you think back to that time, they lived more in a community style thing to where there were a bunch of people in the household. And so those servants yes, they were servants. They weren't treated badly or like, you know, whatever you want to call it, but it would be like a modern day housekeeper or a maid. They would get paid or they would get room and board or whatever the case would be for help, but they were there every day. And so that for me was a huge eye opener. And I thought, okay, what am I doing wrong here? Like, why am I really striving to be this? Who's judging me? Because really we think everybody outside of us is judging us, but it came down to, for me, was I was judging myself. I felt like I had to be this superwoman, and I felt like I had to be everything to everyone, if that makes sense. So with that being said, I ended up kind of in burnout because like I said, I was learning to start to say no. Like the first time I said no about a PTA event, I was like, oh my God, I felt so guilty. But then I thought, you know what? It's actually okay, because I really couldn't do it. It would have stressed me out and I wouldn't have been doing it in joy, right? And that was my big thing at that point in time was, okay, I want to be in joy and I want to understand what I want from my life. So I ended up, I've always been this book person, right? Like I'll read anything and everything and especially self-help books. I was totally into self-help books and I loved to read them. And so when I was in high school, I actually wanted to be a counselor. So one day I thought, you know what, I'm going to be my own counselor, right? Quote unquote counselor. I'm not a licensed counselor, just to get that disclaimer out there. But I was going to just decide that I was going to do this myself. So I poured myself into Bible studies and self-help books and all of these kind of things, looking to find out what is going to be the thing that's going to help me figure it out. Of course, there wasn't a to-do like do this, that, and the other that really made sense to me. And they would say, oh yeah, you want to be great. And I'd be like, okay, yes, but how? And they're like, well, just make changes. Okay, but what changes? Like, show me the roadmap. How do I do this? So that being said, that's where all of this stuff with me, my Embodied Grace program, the series, the online webinars, the book, all of those things have come from, because nobody could give me a step-by-step, this is how we do it. So hopefully this is what we're going to do today, is help you guys create that. So as we go through, I just want you to be in the mindset of what is it that would be great for you, right? So for me and my personal story, when I was trying to figure out what awesomeness was, it really came down to freedom. And so I want everybody to just take a deep breath for a minute, and hopefully this will resonate with you. And so just close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just listen to these words. To have the steps to awesomeness and to really find what that means for you, when I was going through my own journey, freedom and awesomeness went together for me. In order to be awesome, I needed to feel free. And what did freedom mean? For me, freedom was all about letting go of self-criticism, letting go of negative thinking, letting go of anxiety and worry, and just totally embracing my truth, loving my life, and embracing self-awareness into the point that I could do what was right for me and totally let go of what others thought I should do. Does that resonate with anybody? Does it feel good? Yeah. So in that being said, that's when I decided, you know what, it's time for everybody. It's time for me especially. And hopefully this is what we're going to do today with you guys, is we're going to claim your worth, align with your purpose, set your intentions, and then we're going to move forward with clarity, knowing what you want in life. Okay? Is everybody on board for that? Are we ready? Okay, I'm getting thumbs up. This is so weird for me to not have anybody talking back. I'm used to this interactive class. So anyway, hopefully it's really good for you guys. The one thing that I want to get out there in the beginning is, as we're going through this, take what resonates with you. But one thing I always say when I'm speaking is, if it gives you an aha moment, fantastic. But if it ruffles your feathers, even better, because that's where growth comes in. Okay? So does that make sense to everybody? That if it ruffles your feathers, that's when you need to be like, okay, let's look at that. Why does that bother me so much? So what we're going to do now is, if you guys will get to your handout that I sent, if everybody has that. Does anybody want to share real quick, like what they're kind of struggling with?
Sure. I'm struggling with how to prioritize right now, and
Okay.
how to pick the things I really need to put my energy to.
Okay.
For those who don't have any idea, back on March 6th, my neighbor's barn burned down.
Right.
And I have been in a total just adrenal burnout.
Okay.
And frustration and no idea what to do. And it's me all by myself.
Okay.
3 horses, a dog, and 2 barn cats. And the horses are sick and the dog is having problems. And
Okay.
I'm really, so getting perspective back has been really difficult for the last 8 weeks.
Okay.
And
that goes along with the energy right now of what's going on in the world. So that makes sense to me.
And what really is fun is a couple of weeks ago, the neighbor burned railroad ties and I got in the smoke. So my voice has been coming and going. Some days it's hard to breathe. Medication doesn't always work. And yesterday I couldn't talk at all.
So the chemicals, you're still dealing with the chemicals. Okay.
I may actually get to squeak at you if you. So that's where I'm at, what I'm doing. And I think the timing of this is perfect.
Good.
To help me figure out how to get perspective and how to really let go. Okay, you don't need to deal with that. Just go do with this. And it's okay to just stop, throw your hands up and say, I'm not doing any more today, and just stop.
Right. Anybody else? Like when you guys saw the title of this, what did you guys think when you were like, okay, steps to awesomeness in life? What does that mean? Like who was like, okay, yes, because I want to do this. I want to get rid of this. I want to deal with this. Did anybody have anything like that? It's awfully quiet.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Me? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I think just the whole concept of embodying the gracious woman, seeing the internal beauty, and exploring what my power might actually truly be.
Good.
Would be actually what I'm also, been really on this whole path, much like you, where I have just been gobbling up. I feel like I'm the deer, panting for the stream, all the time, just wanting to just drink in everything that there is, to find everything out I can about God and me and the relationship. And so I guess it's just your concept was just another augmentation of my path.
Good. Okay, good. I like that. Does anybody else want to share? Okay. The two that are on the phone, if you guys want to talk, you're welcome to join in. I'm not sure who's there, but you guys are welcome to join in. All right. So here's the good part. Okay. So this is what I want to do. And like I said in the beginning, when we go through these steps, this is where I want you guys to really start getting interactive and where we're going to talk through some of these things. But it may seem backwards in the beginning. So just let's go with it and trust the process. And I'll tell you, this is the process that happened for me. And this is the way that it finally made sense. And so this is where my steps come in and where it really can make a difference if you're really, really ready and willing to look at what's going on and start making changes. So the first thing is when you see those women that are like, you can just tell that they're, they're secure, they're confident, they're graceful, they're poised, they look like they've got it all together. All of those kind of things. What's the first thing that you think? And you can be totally honest here. I feel like I need like little noises in the background of like chirping crickets or Jeopardy theme song or something.
all right.
So do you ever just realize, like when you're sitting there looking at it, aren't you like, oh my God, I want that. Like whenever I see that, I'm like, okay, I want that. Like, how do I get that? Right? How do I get to be that way? How do I, bring that in? How do I do that? That's what I want to do. Right? Like we could be being nitpicky and judging, but that's not where I go. The best thing you can do is never judge, right? So if you see something that you like, how do you get it, right? And so the one thing that I realized is when I was looking at people like that, I'm like, they're not the ones that are really getting it and really doing it. They're not putting on airs. They are all of those things. They are that poise. They are that success. They are that awesomeness, right? All of those things that I want, they are that. So what is the key? What are they doing that I'm not doing? Well, you know what it came down to? What I realized? They take care of themselves. So the first thing in that handout that I said is first and foremost, she knows how, and the fill in the blank is to take care of herself, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the biggest key, is she knows how to take care of herself. That was one of the hardest lessons for me to learn, right? Mm-hmm. So since she knows how to take care of herself, then I was like, okay, obviously she knows what she's doing. She knows how to manage her life. What am I not doing that she's doing, right? So step one, does anybody see that and realize what that step is going to be? Can anybody guess? It says step one is to blank, that you want to take care of yourself.
Obviously, to choose.
Okay, right. Okay, so the word that I use here is decide.
Decide.
Okay, this is one of the biggest things I think everybody makes a mistake in. It doesn't matter what you're beginning to do. You have to decide. And there's something about that word, about decide, where it's a specific, concrete, this is going to happen, right? Instead of being like, oh, I really need to do this, or, oh, I really need to do that, or, oh, it's time for me to start losing weight, or it's time for me to start eating better, or whatever. Like, we'll say those things, but we don't really mean them. And I'm guilty, just like everybody, right? Like I'm right now, I really need to lose weight. And I keep saying, oh, I really need to lose weight. But you know what? I haven't decided that that's what I want to do yet, because I know the effort that it's going to take. So you have to decide. That is step one. And I will tell you, that is probably the biggest factor of anything, is making that decision and deciding. Does that make sense to everybody?
It does. I think a lot of times I find that when I make that solid decision, it's usually I'm at the end of my wish list of dreams, of what I'd love to see or would like to see. What I actually, it's like I get an inner grittiness that just says, this will happen.
Right.
It's almost like you get backed against a wall, or maybe you put a line in the sand and you just step right over it and just say, no more here on this side, I'm over there and I am going.
Right. So we need to do that about taking care of ourselves. We need to decide, you know what? I'm important. I am deciding right now, today, that I am going to take care of myself from now on. So once that decision is made, and if I were you guys, I would almost make in your journal, or even in the notes, there's a little bit of space, and just say, I decide right now that I will create awesomeness in my life, and I will take care of myself. Okay, and then step two is actually action. Action about self-care. Not action about anything else yet. But first of all, you're going to decide that you're going to take care of yourself. And then now you got to take actions that say, okay, I am taking care of myself. I am important. I need to be taken care of. So we get into self-care, and a lot of times people out there think self-care is selfish. Has anybody run across that, where they think self-care is selfish? Mm-hmm. Right? I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding. So the thing about self-care is, it's not about being, putting everybody else on the back burner and ignoring everybody else's needs, especially when there's other things going on, right? You've got people, animals, kids, whatever to take care of. You have to do those things. But if you're putting yourself on the back burner to where you're completely running on burnout, you're not really taking care of everybody the way that you could be, because you don't have enough energy to do it. right? So self-care doesn't have to be a spa day, because I think a lot of times when people hear that word self-care, that's kind of what goes in their head. Oh yeah, she's going to go pamper herself. It's not about pampering. It's about truly, honestly taking care of your heart, your soul, your mind, your body, all of those things that need to be taken care of, right? Your whole being, you as a whole, taking care of that. So what would be some examples of what self-care would look like? You know, maybe it is a trip to the spa. Maybe if that's what you need and that will make you feel revitalized, maybe that's it. Maybe it's just getting some exercise. Maybe it's sleep. You know, maybe it's 5 minutes of just breathing.
Food.
So,
good food.
Yeah, good food, right? So what are some examples? Let's fill up the examples. Like I have, step 2 is to take action. So the fill in the blank, action is the key word there. And what are some self-care examples that would make you feel honored right now to take care of yourself?
Well, walk in nature.
Perfect.
Recently, I was listening to 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗄𝗃, a reading. Anyway, she talked about how important live food is. Like, so I've been trying to incorporate just some fresh fruit, make sure, or something fresh, vegetable-wise, or something that's actually fresh and alive that comes into my body. And I felt really good doing that this week.
That vital energy is huge.
Well, it just like, okay, I can do that one little thing. If I at least do one little piece of, you know, fruit or vegetable today or whatever, then I got something good in me, and it makes it a lot easier to incorporate more and more too, which is interesting, but that's not the point. The point is I do at least one.
Right.
And if I do one, I've met my goal.
It totally is, though. It totally is easier to do the rest. So, and plenty of water would be another one. Like people don't realize sometimes just getting enough water is huge. Like that is a total self-care thing, right? Gratitude journals are good. Epsom salt bath, you know, Epsom salt baths are really, really good. Meditation time. And so
rewarding myself with a treat of some sort.
Yeah, if that works, that's great. Sometimes part of the self-care is just honestly honoring who you are. So I have a really good example about this. When I was in yoga training, I took a really intense 1-week course, and a lot of the ladies that were there actually stayed in a hotel very near to the place where we were all taking our class. And the instructor training was intense. It was literally 7 full days. And I didn't end up staying because I still had kids at home. And so I was going home I was leaving my house at 7 in the morning, coming home at about 7 o'clock at night. Some of the other ladies were all going to go out one night and have dinner, or some of them were going to go catch another yoga class, or, you know, all of these things. And I really kind of wanted to go just because I felt like I should, since that's what everybody was doing. But I had to stop and think, okay, what really would honor me in this moment? Yes, it would be great to have the connection. It was probably a business move to go out with everybody else doing the class. But in my heart of hearts, honoring myself and putting self-care first in that moment meant going home to see my kids.
Well, I think it's the gratitude of your family, perhaps, that you had a family, and the sacredness of where you're at, the sacredness of your motherhood, the sacredness of your heart, and the sacredness of what has been given to you in your life. And part of that is your children. Right.
Well, and you know, in the same thing, like had I made the other decision, the point I'm trying to make is what feels good inside you. Literally, like I kind of wanted to go out with the girls. I'm not, you know, and I'm like, I really kind of want to go, but it really just didn't feel like, when I was like, no, I just want to go home and relax. So it was more about just getting home and relaxing and knowing that that was really that was a self-care choice, right? I could have gone out and had fun and it would have been great and we would have had a great time, but it really wasn't honoring me personally. And it's partly because I'm just kind of a homebody. Like I can go out and have fun and that's great, but to be totally honest, I'd rather just be home. So if that choice, it doesn't matter which way I would have chosen. If I would have chosen to go out and enjoyed it, that would have been self-care for me. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about which choice you make, it's which choice is right for you. Does that make sense?
What's right for you in that moment also.
In that moment. Yes, exactly. Because 2 weeks later, maybe I would have rather gone out. you know what I mean?
Yeah, because sometimes you lose yourself in your kids and family and home and their duties, and sometimes you do need to just break loose and be fun.
Right? So, and that's the biggest key, right, is what is right for you. What feels good to you. So if you guys were all to have to choose one thing right now from that list that we just wrote out that would be actual true self-care, what would it be?
I would have to say taking my dogs for a walk.
Good. Yeah, that's really good. Anybody else want to pick one?
Right now, a cup of hot chocolate.
Right? For your throat. That's fantastic. That's so true. I mean, that's so brilliant. It really is, because that would be really good for you right now.
Yes.
It's a little bit of a treat, plus it's warm and it'll comfort your throat.
Yes. So let's take a 5-minute break so I could go make
So the biggest thing when
exercise.
you're exercise, yeah. And sometimes, okay, so here's another really good point about that. Sometimes self-care is really the discipline that we really don't want to do, right? Because there's been times where I really am like, I'm struggling. I've got a lot of stuff to do. And I know in my heart of hearts that I need to just stop all of it and I need to go catch a yoga class and then come back. And sometimes it seems like the backwards thing to do. But in that moment, if that's what you need to do, you need to put everything else on hold and go take care of yourself, exercise. And if you do that, you'll find that you end up having more energy for the other things later anyway. So this is all critical, right? All of this self-care stuff, making sure you decide, all of this is really extremely important. The water, the gratitude journal, all of these things that really nurture, because when we're doing this, we're looking at it as a whole, okay? Our whole body, mind, spirit, everything together. So you've got to take care of yourself all. So the biggest thing to decide is what is the important thing and what is the luxury, right? Now, it's definitely good to do the luxury stuff too, once in a while when you can. And if you can afford it, absolutely do those things. But
I got one yesterday from listening to something or other, or else it was Sunday. Anyway, create a journal at the end of the day that these are the 3 things I did right today.
Good.
Do you have any idea how hard it is to do that when you're not in the best place? It is really, and sometimes it comes down to the simplest thing. I fed the dog.
Right. Yeah. I do that with my coaching on the 90-day programs. I make people report, not in the beginning, but after we get through a few weeks, what was the 3 things you're proud of yourself for?
I remember feeding the dog is a very big thing at the moment. I'll feed everybody else and forget to feed the dog.
Yeah.
And then she looks at me like, Mom, you forgot me. Yeah. Yeah.
So that is a great thing to do of what you did right for the day. Okay. So then we're going to go into step 3. And this is a part that a lot of us don't think about. We kind of just touched on it, but I really want to reiterate this because this is a huge part of this. So step 3 is to realize that self-awareness is part of self-care. So self-awareness goes back to what we were just talking about, where what is right for you in this moment, right? Which feels better? So what does it mean to have self-awareness?
Are you talking about an intuition, getting into just feeling whether or not this is right between 2 choices?
Or just knowing what's right, for you in, in that moment. It doesn't even have to be two choices. It's just about being completely true to yourself, right? So self-awareness is really knowing yourself and knowing what you need in every moment, right?
Well, I think what I've struggled with is, for a long time, I would not give myself permission to treat myself. There was like how, especially in certain communities, there's the building up those who do the self-sacrifice stuff. Somehow they're elevated in the opinion. This is how you're supposed to be and live, is, like you were saying, give more to everybody else and kind of put yourself last. But there's also more of whether or not you're worth it, or or if, just that little bit of luxury that you can afford, whether or not it's really a good thing for you to do. Maybe you should hold off and not do that right now, and things like that. So I know that maybe your self-awareness thing is probably a little different from that, but to me it kind of connects.
No, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Self-awareness is literally being true to yourself, talking positive to yourself, and following your own intuition. Now, and I see exactly what you're talking about, because we are kind of raised, especially I think those of us in my generation, and especially if you have that Christian background, we're kind of raised in that sacrificing self, you end up being a doormat, basically, right? And then it's the martyrdom, and we don't need that anymore. That's not, it doesn't do any good in this time and space, right? Back in Jesus' times, that made huge sense for people to be a martyr, because it showed that they were really strong in their belief. We don't need that in this day and age. Like, that is actually doesn't work anymore. And the putting yourself last and not feeling like you're worthy is not what God wants us to do, because he tells us that we're wonderful. He tells us that we can create amazing things. All of these things in the Bible, he tells us, but we seem to miss it because we get told the stories of the Proverbs 31 woman who does everything, but we forget the part that she had a lot of help, right? We get told the stories of the Good Samaritan, but he didn't really give up everything. He just made sure the man was safe, paid for it, went on his way, did his business, and then came back later and checked when he had time. He didn't give up everything. But the stories that we learn when we're growing up kind of get tweaked a little bit. And I think sometimes we kind of hold on to some of the generational stuff, right? Like the fears about not having enough, or the fears about not having enough money. And it's actually a jealousy thing when you see people who are living in the luxury. And instead, if you're in a space where you can't celebrate that for them and be like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing that they can get that. If you're in the space of, well, I can't believe they spend their money on that, then that's a lack mentality, right? And that's not a bad thing. It's just, that's the truth of it. So for you, knowing that you're ready to take these steps into a new awesome life and a new awesome thing where you let go of lack mentality, you let go of negative thinking, you let go of those old patterns, that's where being self-aware comes in, right? Because you're going to start noticing, okay, where is my mind going? Is this lack or is this real? Is this truth? Because God tells us there is no lack, right? And so it's in that space of just learning and relearning and letting go of some of those old patterns.
Part of what I think is interesting in your first question is when you see a woman who seems to look like she's embodying grace. She's got the appearance of having it all together. What I think is interesting is now I'm able to more look at her and go, wow, that is so amazing. And I know her life has challenges underneath. There's deep waters underneath that calm surface. There are undercurrents in her life. We all have them. Nobody gets out of life without something. You could be a princess on a bed full of with a P under, all kinds of mattresses,
Right.
with a P under there. And you could be waking up in the morning going, I don't know what's really wrong, but it just doesn't feel like it used to feel. I mean, wherever we're at, we all have our basic thing that we're dealing with. Some are in the lap of luxury, some are in serious deep poverty, but there's joy and there's challenge within each nugget that we have. So basically what I'm kind of intrigued by with your question, and when I look at such women, is more of the wow. And I actually have some pretty good things going with myself in my life. I wouldn't give a great deal of things up. I mean, everything I've gained has been beautifully put together now. Now, it's not always felt that way at times. But what's interesting is, okay, how can I take what I do have and then step it up and bring in the good that I see in her life? Because to change places, to wear her shoes, it's not going to feel right. And it's, like you said, a jealousy thing, which we all know right now is going to just set you back.
And so the only thing you can do literally is be like, ooh, I want something like that. And then totally let go of her and only focus on you.
Well, and know that if she can achieve it,
then you can too. Yeah.
You can.
And you have to let go of any and all judgment, right? About what she's doing or how she's living or whatever. I just put that as an example because it seems like everybody can relate to that, right? We can all relate to that where you're like, oh my God, I don't know what she's got, but I want it. You know what I mean? So that's when you're in that space, that's when you're like, okay, what am I thinking that she has that I don't have? That's the key to really deciding what you want, right? Whatever you're projecting that you think she has, that's when you need to say, okay, what is it that I'm thinking that she must have that I don't? And how do I get that for myself? And then you've got to completely let go of her because it doesn't really matter, because this is all about what you need in your life for yourself. And everybody's different, right? So the choices that we're going to make are not going to be the choices that are right for somebody else.
I kind of think it's more the feeling of ease that for me, I pick up on. Is her life, she just
seems
feels like
so graceful.
You get the feeling that she's at ease and comfortable where she's at. And maybe it's a feeling level more than an appearance level.
It totally is the feeling level. And it's the energy that they put off because there's that confidence and security. And those are the things that we feel and most of us want, right? Confidence, security, self-assuredness, and not in a way that's boastful or prideful. It's really about just being honest and authentic to yourself. Now, and like I think some of you have probably already heard me talk before, but I always tell people, it doesn't matter if you're a waitress or a brain surgeon. Both are important, and you've got to pick which one makes your heart sing, right? So pick what makes you happy. Don't let anybody tell you that being a waitress is beneath you, and don't let anybody tell you that you don't have what it takes to be a brain surgeon. If that's what your calling is, if that's what's inside of you, that's what you go for, right? So what is it inside of you that you're wanting or you're looking for or you want to create in your life, right? So that's what we're going to get into with the next step. So I just want to go back over it really quick. So first we decided, okay, that person that's all together knows how to take care of herself, right? The first step is we are deciding that now we're going to do that. We're going to take care of ourselves. We're going to take action by implementing self-care in ourselves. We're going to remember that self-awareness is key. So in anything that we're doing, we have to be aware of ourselves. How are we feeling? What are we thinking? How is our body reacting? Do we feel excited and open, or do we feel shut down and tight? Are we happy or are we scared? Are we excited and thrilled, or are we terrified, right? So start feeling yourself. What does this feel like? Am I feeling not taken care of? Anytime you feel like I wish that my husband would just bring me a cup of tea or something so that I feel taken care of. The best way to get that done is to do it for yourself. And I'll tell you, the more you start caring for yourself, the easier it is to take care of others. the more you can ask yourself, what do I want and what do I need? The easier it is to ask somebody else, are you okay? What do you need? How can I help you? What do you need? You've got to do that same thing for yourself. What's going on with me? Why am I upset? What do I need? How can I help? Right? You've got to be your own best friend.
I love that. That's again the giving and receiving piece that you, it just really bounds upon itself. It's like a stone dropped in the water, and it just ripples outward and expanding everywhere. The generosity to yourself, I see, is what you're trying to say, is how you then eventually are able to be more generous, because you really do see the other's pain. You see yourself in their emotions, in their body stance, or in the circumstance that you just can tell where they might be. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And, in the long term, this is kind of a little bit off track, but in the long term, you kind of let go of that. Like, I know one thing I kind of grew up with was, well, nobody ever did that for me. You know what I mean? Why is she such a princess that happens for her? Right? You know what? I decided I am a princess. I am the daughter of a king, and I am going to treat myself as such. And you know what? Ever since I made that realization, I've told my daughter that same thing. And I tell every teenage girl that I know, you are the daughter of a king. Expect to be treated that way. Expect to be treated with respect. Expect to be treated with kindness. Expect to be treated like a princess, because you are. Right? And not in a, everything taken care of you way, but in a, I know what's right for me, and no, I'm not going to do this, or yes, I want to do this. Right?
Well, what I see is there's the flippy ego's way of doing it, which would be real rebellious in its nature. But there's the other side. I often thought, the stories of, the lost princess, who gets found, and she's brought back to the castle and is suddenly lavished with service and abundance of glorious appointments in the rooms, and expectations as well on how to act and respond and accept the honor due to her state in the in the realm, so to speak, and as a child of the king.
And that's what you're doing right now, is you're claiming that back for yourself, right? By deciding that you are important and that you get to live that way, right? And it's not about monetary.
It's an accepting that this is
your worth.
Actually your truth, that you may have been lost for a time, but you come back into the fold, and there's so much more for you to take in, and just day by day, just accept it and move forward with it.
And just make choices daily, hourly, by minute, whatever it takes, right? Okay, so now step 4, and this is where I said things may seem a little bit backwards, right? Because we're like talking about how to create awesome in your life, and people are usually like, okay, I want to create it now, so what are my steps? And they're like, okay, I'm going to do this and this and this. But did you see how first we had to go back and decide? We had to take care of ourselves and be aware of ourselves, so that then moving forward, now we know which choices are right for us. So that's a little bit backwards from a lot of what people teach about when you're wanting to create something, wanting to manifest, or wanting to create success or whatever. You've got to go back in the beginning. And I think that's what the key was for me, is that I wasn't in the beginning of where I was feeling worthy and I was giving myself what I needed, so that I was running on a full tank instead of an empty one. Right? And I was aware of what was right for me instead of doing what everybody out there says I should. Right? So then once you get through this place and you're in step 4, you've got to identify, what does this mean to you? If you're going to identify what embodied grace, because all of my stuff is called embodied grace, because that's what made most sense to me. So if you're going to do these 5 steps to awesomeness, you've got to identify, what does the awesomeness look like to you in your life? What does that mean? There's a lot of freedom in it. There's freedom from self-criticism, negative thinking, worry, anxiety. you've got to figure out what is it that's holding you back. What are those key things that you need to be free of so that you really can create the awesomeness in your life, right? So then, and I'm going to go in step 5 really quick because we're already almost coming up on an hour. Embodied grace on step 5 is embracing your truth, right? You with capital Y-O-U-R, your truth. What is your truth? Loving your life, right? Embracing self-awareness by doing what is right for you. Letting go of everything else. So letting go of what others think you should do. So the things that you're going to have to look at as we move forward is this is really your base and your platform. And it doesn't matter what you want to do in your life, what you want to create. These are the key foundational things that need to be done first. So you've got to be willing to try a different approach. You've got to be willing to let go of the defeating beliefs because sometimes we hold on to those because they're so familiar and they're so easy. You've got to be willing to get out of your comfort zone, right? Taking care of yourself is not always comfortable because we're so taught against that. And then you've really got to believe that you're worth it. So that'd be the biggest question I ask is, are you willing to believe that you are worth it?
Thank you. That is really profound. Appreciate that.
So do you guys have, like, if you were to say, right now, what do you want? Right? Because now we're in the space where we're going to totally embrace this. We are going to embody our own awesomeness moving forward. We're going to claim our worth right now. We're going to align with our own purpose, right? Whatever that means. Now, your purpose may be one thing this week and it may change tomorrow. We don't know. But the biggest thing to do is what is right for you, right? What is your purpose right now? And then set the intentions moving forward. So once you've got the foundation of knowing that you're valuable, knowing that you're worthy, you're taking care of yourself so that you have the energy, because it's about vital energy, right? Sleep and rest and water and food and exercise and all these things people don't look at as self-care, right? You hear self-care, most people think spa, right? We talked about that. So if the spa is part of it, then do that. But once you get all of that in place, now you're going to set your intention to move forward in clarity, knowing what you want to create in life. So what is awesomeness to you? What do you want right now to create? If it's peace, okay, what are 3 things that you can do to create peace in your life right now? You could commit to meditation every day. You could commit to reading, a book about how to be peaceful. You could listen to Zen music. You could take a walk in nature. All of those things are going to promote peace. So what would be 3 steps that you could take right now to do that? Does anybody else have something else that they're like, okay, I want blank? If it's go ahead.
I want freedom.
Okay, freedom. So what is freedom? The first thing you do is define it. What does the freedom mean? Okay, so you want freedom. So here's your action steps. Define what freedom is. Do a visualization to feel what freedom feels like in your body. Like if you were to do a creative visualization about freedom, what would that feel like in your body? So get familiar with what that would feel like. And once you know that, then you can start creating your action steps to creating that, right? So freedom, so we'll just say freedom from debt. That would be an easy one, right? So then the steps would be, if you want to have freedom from debt, then the first step would be, okay, figuring out what your bills are, deciding how much you can pay, and then picking which one you're going to pay off first. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So does anybody else have anything else? So once you pick freedom, freedom's a big word. So you've got to really, really dial in into what that really means. Okay. If somebody wants success in their business, okay, great. What does it look like? What does success mean? Is that 500 a week or is that 5,000 a week? What is your version of success? So it really comes back to that. What is it for you, right? So if it's 500 a week, okay, what are some things I could do to create more income that would produce that much money a week? Do you need to send out an email list? Do you need to contact and do one-on-one coffee dates? Do you need to find somewhere to speak? What is it that you need to do to create that success in your business? Does anybody else have another idea that we can run through of what you want? Family. Some people, okay, I want my family to be happier. Okay, great. What are some things you can do at home that would make it more, what are action steps you can do? Is it every Tuesday that you say, okay, it's family night, we're having dinner, and then we play a game? Is it, everybody chips in for 15 minutes on Saturday morning to do the chores so that then everybody's free to do what they want the rest of the weekend? Like, just pick action steps. And maybe the action step is making a list of what you need to do, right? Just anything that you can do that takes action. Once you get in movement and get in action, it's easier to continue to keep going. Does that make sense?
Jennifer, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Somehow I blocked my video and I can't figure out how to get it back.
Okay.
It's Kathy.
Okay.
Mine is bigger. It's really figuring out what I want to do next.
Okay.
I've had 2 careers and I'm ready to move on, but I'm not sure what I'm ready to move on to.
Okay. So what you want to do. So what do you want? I don't know what I want. Well, what do you don't want? Okay. So, and I know that's not like being grammatically correct at all, but I'm just saying, what is it that you don't want any more of? And sometimes we have to start there. Sometimes we have to say, okay, I don't want to be sitting here bored. I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be whatever. And then say, okay, great. What's the opposite of that? So when you're in that space where you really don't know what you want, decide what you don't want. And then start checking off the list. Okay, well, I don't want to be bored. Okay, well, you want to have some fun and activity. What would those activities look like? It depends on what you're trying to create. Like, are you working towards retirement? Are you working towards a new job? It really kind of depends on what your defining piece is in that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's where, if you don't know what you want, then the good place to start is what you don't want. And then just figure out a way to do the opposite. Okay, guys, we're coming up on our hour, so I'm gonna have to wrap it up. Those of you that are in the membership, remember that you've got half off of any appointments with me. So if you want to make one of the appointments with me, you get half off of that price. The recording of this will be on there. And Kathy, that might be a good thing to do, is just, do a clarity session. So like, you could book the reading, and even though we don't need a reading, we could do a reading still too. And then just put a note in there saying, you know what, I need more clarity on what I really want, and help me define that. And we could do an hour session, or we could talk about it a little bit more on the call too, depending on how that goes. But for those of you that aren't in the membership, there's a lot of perks to it. You can find out more about that on my website. You guys, I hope this gives you a really good foundation of where to start. And you can use this over and over, because you can always come back to this. If you feel like you're off track and you're not taking care of yourself, or if you feel like something's off, you know what I mean? Look back at it and say, okay, am I taking care of myself? Am I clear? Have I made a decision on what I'm doing? Then what are the actions I'm doing? Am I taking care of myself, or have I forgotten to do that? Right? And then come back to self-awareness. What's going on with me? What do I need right now? What am I not being authentic about? What am I not being in my truth about? And then step back and say, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to create freedom, and I want to embrace my truth. What does that mean? Where am I at? Right? And it's just about trying something different, because it's getting, try something new. If your routine is to go for a walk, but you feel like that isn't working, take an Epsom salt bath. Just try it. Try something different. See what really works for you. The biggest thing is letting go of what anybody else thinks, because this is you and your life, and you've got to know what's right for you. And it may not look like what everybody thinks it should look like, right? So those are the big things about creating your own awesomeness in your life, is really getting clear and making that decision to do it. Okay. All right, ladies. I hope you enjoyed this today. I'm going to go ahead and sign off because it's right at 12:30. It's been a full hour. If you can believe that, it goes so quickly. Thank you guys all for being here, and I will talk to you soon. Those of you that are in the membership, if you have questions, put it down in our Facebook group. We'll talk about it more later. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Bye.